This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
Hey, new filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and as you can see, I started tearing apart my office. Well, Nick can't actually see it. For those of you watching the YouTube version of this show, I have started taking some walls down, kind of.
Are you in the same space you were in the last episode where we talked about the light behind you and all that?
Yeah. The irony is we were just talking about my lighting setup, and I've tried to make this relatively ugly space look prettier, and now I've just gone full on, made it as ugly as possible.
Now, I knew you were ripping out some cabinets and stuff, but now you're taking walls down?
Yeah, well, I haven't taken a wall down yet, but I've taken off this whole room. This is like an old garage that I'm sitting in. Back in the 80s, they turned it into a room, and I don't know what they used it for, but it has like baseboards kind of all along the bottom half of the wall, and we're just gonna we're gonna fix all the drywall and everything. So I started pulling all this board off the wall, but now it's just left like a cardboard looking like 3-foot border around the room, and that will all actually have to. I just talked to a drywall guy today. We will leave the drywall intact except for the bottom part that just looks like cardboard. We're gonna cut the whole bottom of the drywall off of this room. So maybe next time we do an episode, you'll see studs.
That's exciting. Cool. I'm glad to hear you're not doing the drywall yourself. That's a lot of work.
Right. But it sounds like I can probably do the demolition myself. It sounds like it's as simple as taking a razor blade, like a box cutter.
You just score it. And
scoring the wall. Yeah. But so the reason I wanted to start this episode in the middle of my renovation is I'm already thinking several steps ahead to what this room is going to be. Behind me is going to be, this will be like the movie screening room. So behind me will be a big projector wall. I may or may not even bother putting a screen up. Maybe that'll be, eventually I'll put a screen up. But I think even just a white wall will look pretty good from experience. My office will move to this like old kitchen area that we have that we've just finished tearing out the cabinets. So my shot will change for the podcast, although I don't know when exactly I'll be able to move in. But I'm already thinking about lighting in this room, knowing that it's going to be my office, the podcast area. We'll be watching movies in here. I'm just thinking, well, one, the old lighting that I have in here should go. And two, it'd be really nice to replace it all with like smart lighting. Wouldn't it be great if it could do everything I needed to do as a filmmaker? Like it could be 3,500 Kelvin to feel normal and nice as a living room, but it could also be 5,500 Kelvin to every time I shoot in here, I could just like put it at 100% brightness and have a color temperature that matches the sun and matches my professional lighting. And then, maybe when we're watching a movie, wouldn't it be cool if it could just be like 10% brightness and it's blue? So
yeah, you need some smart lights.
Yeah.
I love it.
And this is where like I could use some feedback from you, but also from the audience. If anyone listening or watching has ideas for specific LED lighting that they like, I'd love something that can get relatively bright but doesn't need to always be at 100%, that is full RGB. It's not just on that Kelvin spectrum between yellow and blue. I would love to be able to do any color. Why not? If I'm doing a podcast shoot, wouldn't it be cool if I could do my key lighting, but then I could set all of the lighting in the living room to be behind me like blue or something, or green or red, depending on the shoot I'm doing.
That would be cool. So I've got a couple things in my house. So in my theater room, I have two, I think it's pronounced Lyfx, Lyfx is one of the brands that does these like multicolored smart control bulbs. And we'll put them in the show notes for anyone who's interested. Yeah. And I just have two fixtures, and these bulbs connect to Wi-Fi automatically. And so you can control with an app or with usually we use Alexa and just say like, Alexa, turn on the theater lights, and boom, they pop up. But you can do any color you want and different colors of white. And those are nice because they just connect directly to the Wi-Fi. You don't need a bridge or anything. But then in other parts of my house where I wanted to control existing lighting fixtures, what I've done is install smart dimmers and then put just regular white LED bulbs, dimmable LED bulbs in like the ceiling fixtures. So the lights themselves aren't smart, but the switch becomes smart. And in general, those have required like a hub. Have you seen that before?
Yeah, so let me explain what I'm looking at product-wise and where I get confused about hubs. And it sounds like everything you're using is like light bulbs. You're using like dumb fixtures with smart bulbs, right?
That's what's going on in my theater, but elsewhere I'm using dumb everything except for the switch itself. Right. The light switch gets replaced with something smart,
Yeah. So I've been looking at like kind of these like disc lights. I'll put them in the show notes. I'm surprised how cheap they are because they're like $100 each.
Tell me what I'm looking for. I want to look this up while you talk.
All right, so yeah, this is the light that I'm potentially interested in. Although I'm kind of dumbfounded by the price. Like, I mean, I don't want to spend way too much money, but like I also don't want to get a super cheap light. So when I see something that's like only $100, I'm kind of like, is it going to be good enough? But people seem to like this thing. It's a weird light. This probably would do what I want it to do. The main light, the main disc, looks like it's bicolor. It can go anywhere between, I think, like 3,500 Kelvin up to 6,000 or something. It's in that range. And then it has kind of a backlight that's like a ring around the top that's RGB. So you could do blue, but it doesn't do the full disc as blue. It kind of does like a ceiling ring, which
it's kind of cool looking, actually.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. Like for almost every fixture that we have in this room, we have 3 main lighting fixtures. It'd be nice to just replace them with this disc.
Yep.
And it's wired into the ceiling, and then and into the light switches. But then I would need smart switches to go with them. It can't just be the same old on and off. In fact, my understanding is that these things kind of need power like all the time. So I think the smart switch is smart enough to always give it power, but like it stays connected. But it's
in general. And I don't know about this one specifically, but you wouldn't combine a smart switch with a smart fixture. Usually it's one or the other. So the smart fixture would just you wouldn't even put a switch on it. It'd have power all the time, and you'd control it via smart capabilities. Now, maybe they sell like a remote that looks like a switch, but in general, it wouldn't actually turn power on and off. So what I've seen is you put in a smart dimmer or a smart switch where the light is dumb, or you put in a smart light where the switch is dumb or it has power all the time. Usually not both.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
The other thing you have to worry about with these smart things, though, is a lot of them, their smart features run through like a cloud service. It's not, you would think it'd be just like a local connection, like, your app talks directly to the fixture, but often it's not. And if it's some random company you've never heard of and they go out of business, then all your smart features just stop working. So you're going to be cautious about that as well. I've used GE's smart switches before, and they use a communication protocol called Zigbee, which is pretty common and popular.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And then I just switched, though, to start using Lutron Caseta. I'm not quite sure how you say it.
Oh, yeah, that's the one.
They're very popular and very
that's one I was just
well
looking at.
supported.
Yeah.
So
that's like the slightly more
suggest.
expensive one that I was just looking at. Like, I think I have 2 in my shopping cart right now on Amazon. One is called Casa Smart Dimmer Switch by TP-Link, and it's pretty cheap. It's only $18 for a switch. And I think that may be what Wirecutter recommends.
Okay.
But then I was also looking at this Lutron.
TP-Link's a well-known company, yeah.
And Lutron is more expensive, but people seem to like them a lot.
Lutron seems to kind of be the gold standard right now. So I've started switching to all Lutron in my house, and I've been very happy. So I got like one of their like kits that came with 2 switches and the hub, because the hub basically they use some sort of unique communication protocol between the switches. They all talk to each other, and then they talk to the hub, which is on your network, which is how all the smart stuff happens.
Yeah, so tell me
And
more
I
about.
now
I get confused when I look at these smart products because sometimes they just seem to work out of the box, and sometimes they require some sort of hub, and I don't or bridge. I don't know what that does exactly.
Yeah, in general, if they're Wi-Fi enabled, like my LifeX bulbs are Wi-Fi, meaning they connect directly to the Wi-Fi network in my house and they just work.
Right.
And then other ones have their own communication protocol. In general, one that is a little more robust for this
Right.
kind of low data communication, and that's what the Lutrons do and what Zigbee is and stuff like that. So for your smart switches, I think the Wi-Fi ones are probably a little more finicky. I mean, you can imagine, my Wi-Fi password changed or something.
Right.
There's a million reasons why they could get knocked off the network, and
Or if,
the ones that have a hub are a little more robust.
I suppose you don't have to worry about your internet going down, but if for some reason your Wi-Fi network goes down, then your lights just stop working if they're only Wi-Fi connected.
Although, the smart control usually requires the internet to be working anyway, so even though they might still be on your Wi-Fi, if your internet's down, they often don't work.
Yeah.
Which is dumb. But
like
that
if
is
they
one
have
of
a bridge,
the
will they be impervious to that?
The bridge lets them talk to each other, but it's a good question. I don't know. I think there's still a chance, though, that your internet being out could cause a failure.
Yeah.
So that's a good test. I'll find out for you.
So if I got these Lutron Cassetta dimmer switches and put like 3 or 4 of them down here in this room, they would have to have a hub sitting somewhere plugged into the wall?
Somewhere in the house, yeah. Just one hub for the whole network. Yep.
Right, yeah. So I just need to find a spot for that, but that's no problem. And I'm going to have an electrician come in and like disable everything in this room before I do all the drywall.
The other thing
breaking.
you want to check, now we're getting into like a DIY home improvement podcast,
Right.
is for a lot of these smart switches, you need a neutral wire. And I know your home's a little older, so you'll want to check if there is a neutral available.
Right. Well, and I think that's why people like the Lutron Cassetta is it's like the one that doesn't require a neutral.
The dimmer, so they have two kinds of switches. They have a smart switch, which is just on-off. On-off requires a neutral. If you pay a little bit more and get the dimmer version, it doesn't, because it actually what it does is it dims it all the way down, but keeps a little bit of power running all the time to keep it online, and that's why it's able to stay on.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm just assuming that my 1950s house that was renovated in the 80s may not have the neutral wire. We'll find out. But I've kind of assumed that this one switch, the Lutron Cassetta dimmer, which is in the show notes if anyone's curious, I just assume that's the only one I can use.
Yep,
or the main,
and
the
if
main
you
one.
can, so I don't know how you go. That's a good question. If Lutron has multicolored capabilities in their lineup, because I feel like once you kind of want to pick a brand and stick with it, because then you have a single app and everything's in there. And then I use mine with. I don't know if you guys have like an Amazon Echo or something, but it works really well with the Amazon Echo.
We have
which is
Google
nice.
Home Minis.
I would
They
assume
showed-
it works with that too, but it's something to check.
Well, and
on.
this is my assumption for how I'll work these, because the Switch doesn't have RGB controls. It's just an on switch, an off switch, and then 2 dimmer buttons that go up and down. And so my hope is that all of this works the way that I'm hoping it works this way, that when you turn it on, hopefully it goes back to its old setting. And it'd be nice if, I know I'm not going to be able to do all the RGB controls in the Switch, but at least then I can pop open the app on my phone.
I don't think my guess is you do not want to dim from a switch a smart light fixture. The smart light fixture is going to want to control the dimming itself. It's probably expecting to have full power all the time.
I see. Yeah.
That's I'm just guessing, but you may have some trouble with that.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll have to workshop this even more. My hope was that I could like turn something on with a switch, and then if I need to do the rest of the stuff, go into an app and change the colors or tell it. Really, I imagined setting a bunch of like scenes through. I don't know if I'd use, if I could do this in the app or if I could do this with IFTTT or something, or I could set up podcast mode and movie watching mode and
boom,
and just tell my Google what to do.
It definitely can take some planning,
questions.
but I'm excited to see what you come up with.
The other thing I'm wondering if I'll be able to do is, and this is probably a question for my electrician too, this room is kind of weird. There's some lights that it takes several switches to get all the lights in this room on, and I kind of wonder if some of them should just be linked together. And I wonder if with smart switches, could I set it up so that if I click on this switch over here, it's going to turn the light on that it's connected to, but it could also through its hub say, hey, also activate that switch across the room. Let's just kind of connect these two lighting circuits together and make them dependent on each other.
I believe so. Yep. I think you can do that all with software and set up
That'd
groups,
be really
basically.
nice.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have some switches that are like in a little bit weird places, hard to reach sometimes, and I'm just thinking it might be nice to string a few things together.
With the Lutron dimmers in each pack with the dimmer, so you get the actual dimmer switch which has controls on it, and then you also get like a remote,
right,
with each one that can be programmed independently. Like you just add them into the app, and then you can tell them what to do. And then those remotes can actually be mounted on the wall like a switch somewhere else, so you can have multiple points of control.
And I've noticed some of these smart switches, because they're essentially not an on-off switch. Like even the dimmers, even some of these ones that look like dimmers, they're really just like you click them once and the dimmer doesn't rock.
Right.
And because you figure they're always really on, they always have power to themselves. But I'm wondering, like some of these other ones I've seen, like the rocker switches, like fake rocker switches, you click them once and then they have like a little purple status light that shows you that it's on. Does the Lutron Cassetta show you visually that it's on?
Yeah, I think there's a like a little green LEDs from the bottom to the top that show you like they light up at whatever level you've set it at.
Yeah. Do they stay on all the time? Like the green?
I think when the lights are off, they're off. But when the lights are on, they might be. I don't know. I've never. They're not obtrusive, but I.
Right.
I don't
no,
know.
I think I actually want them on all the time. I just didn't know if they like come on once to show you their status and then they go away, or if they. Like,
the only thing
on.
that has annoyed me about the Lutron smart dimmers is if you set a level and then you turn the lights off. When you turn the lights back on with just the on button, I'd like it to go back to that level, but it always goes to 100%. Maybe there's a way around that. I don't know. But.
Right. That's one thing I was worried about. Is like, I'd like to get something that's decently bright, so that I can use it in a filmmaking capacity. It'd be nice just if I'm shooting B-roll in this room, just turn on all the lights at full power and at 5500 Kelvin, and it'll look pretty good for my camera. But then 90% of the time, we're going to want the lights to be at 50% power, 3500 Kelvin. And it would just be nice if I could somehow program them that that's the default. And every time Amy flips on the switch, it's not going to like blast the room with ugly blue light.
The Lutron dimmers won't do that. They'll go full brightness every time unless you manually like click it up to whatever level you want. Now you could control it with smart levels. Like if you're using Alexa, like Alexa, family time or whatever, and it could set everything exactly where you want it. But in terms of touching the switch, that's what I've experienced at least.
Yeah. That'll be my goal, is trying to get the switch to do as much work as possible, because I can't imagine a world in which I want to walk into this room 9 times a day and have to always say, hey Google,
click, 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 click,
turn
click.
my lights on to normal level. Like that's stupid. I need the switches to do the work. So I guess I'm kind of throwing this out there at the early stages of planning, so that people can follow along on my progress.
Ideas.
But also, if anyone's done this kind of thing in their home, I'd love to know what's worked for you. You can comment on YouTube, on our Twitter, at Hey Film Podcast, or you can email us. You can email me at griffin@hey.film. Or if you want to keep it secret from me,
a link I'll send you, and you can put in the show notes, is the home automation subreddit on Reddit. Is very good. So
I should start reading that. Yeah.
Check it out, and you could even, as you start to develop a plan, put in your assumptions and what you're thinking, and people will pick them apart for you. So.
Well, here's something else I'm doing. I was glad today that the drywall guy, I'm not glad that he told me I need to take out all this drywall on the bottom of my walls. But I am kind of glad that we have to do that, because now I'm realizing if we're going to do that, I can now run cables in the wall and we can move some outlets around. I think I'm going to run some Ethernet through the wall, because I don't think we've talked about this on the podcast, but that I just rerouted where my fiber comes in the house, and I was able to run some Ethernet to a switch. And so suddenly I'm getting I went from 150 megabits up and down, which was already decent, just over Wi-Fi. But then when I hardwired directly into my fiber terminal, now I'm getting like 980 up and 980 megabits down.
Don't talk to me.
And I don't want to lose that.
jealous.
So now that I'm doing this renovation, I'm thinking I could probably leave the terminal where it is, but I guess I'll just run some Ethernet inside the wall and do like an Ethernet port on over by the terminal and an Ethernet port over by where my computer's going to be, and just let it be super fast.
That's the way to do it. And while you're doing it, if you can get it elsewhere, I've got like my Wi-Fi access points are hardwired now, which is nice, and things like that. So,
well, is it the same? What kind of Ethernet goes in the wall? Is it just normal Ethernet, or is there like special in-wall Ethernet?
I think mine is just normal Ethernet, but they ran it through conduit, for safety.
Right.
I don't know all the wiring codes. There's probably what is it, plenum wiring that is like fire resistant for in-wall use. Maybe I'm not an expert. Talk to your electrician.
And like Ethernet is reliable enough that if I put it in the wall, I'll probably have an electrician do this, but like if it goes in the wall, it's not going to like die on me in 5 years.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. The other thing I'd like to run through the wall is maybe HDMI as well. Because I'm thinking, this is one thing I'm going to have the electrician look at is, wouldn't it be cool if I had an outlet on the ceiling for the projector and maybe an HDMI port up there too? And then I don't have to run. Yeah.
Make sure you do HDMI 2.0, get whatever the absolute latest and greatest HDMI spec is, because it's going to change. And then I'd also ask for like a pull. So, in 5 years when you need to replace that cable because the technology's changed, you have something that makes it really easy to pull a new one.
I see. Okay, yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm wondering is there any indication that like I shouldn't even put HDMI in because like we're just a year away from like a wireless standard that,
No,
I don't know.
You want HDMI.
Yeah.
2.1 probably is what you would run today, HDMI 2.1.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking...
And you want to make sure you get Cat 6 Ethernet, which I'm sure whoever you get that's what they'd use anyway, but Cat 6 will support 10 gig, which is coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I'll try to run HDMI to a couple places. Like it'd be cool to have an HDMI port on the wall at my computer, and then it runs to an HDMI port, the one by the projector, and then I could I'm assuming I may need to do like 2 parallel ones or something. So like,
well, what you probably want to do is I don't know exactly where things are, but if you want HDMI from your computer is going to be in that old kitchen area, is that right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty long run. You might actually run like a Balun or something like that, which
what is that?
Actually runs an HDMI Balun, BALUN. You would run like 1 or 2 Ethernet cables actually from one spot to the other, and there's 2 boxes that plugs into, and it converts HDMI, because HDMI can't run super long distances very well.
Right.
And this lets you go like quite a bit farther, so that's something you could look into as well. But you probably want it to go from your computer to wherever like your AV center would be, right? Because in theory, if you'd have like a receiver with multiple inputs, and then you just have one from your AV center up to where the projector goes, and that way you can switch.
I think that's probably what I would do is send it from the computer to where my Roku is sitting and my PlayStation, and there'll be an HDMI switch there, and it can take all these inputs and then send them up the wall to the projector on the ceiling.
And by the way, if you're going to do this, we're going to do it right. You're going to get a screen. You're not going to throw it on the wall. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
I don't know.
You're going to get a proper receiver, and you're going to set up 7.1 Dolby Atmos. Thank you.
We lived in New York for like 5.5 years and just projected onto the wall the whole time. Now, granted...
Look, you're like ripping out walls. You're doing it the right way. So don't tell me you're not going to spend the $200 it costs to put up a proper screen and get a significantly better image.
I probably will, especially because I know... I'm not even sure it's like...
kill you.
It's like a little bit sharper. Like it's definitely sharper to go off a screen. But I think the biggest thing is probably the brightness. Like
I was going to say, brightness is huge, yeah.
And we have a lot of windows in this room, so we'll probably have to put up blackout curtains on all the windows so that we can actually watch during the daytime if we need to.
And a quality screen is not very expensive. I mean, I think my 120-inch was $200 or something.
I just watched my old DIY how to build a projector screen video because I looked at my YouTube analytics the other day, and it's still in my top 10 right now. Like, people are still watching that video.
Actually, I bet during quarantine, I bet that ticked up. I know AV stuff sales are way up, so I bet you a lot of people are looking for DIY projects and home theater projects, so it's perfect.
Yeah, it was weird to watch like a video from 7 years ago or whenever that was. I think it was an Indie Mogul video, or actually it may have been on my personal YouTube channel, but it was around the Indie Mogul era.
Indie Mogul time, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything stand out to you huge that you used to do when you made videos that you hate now or anything?
Oh, what's weird is now I need to look at it again. I think I might have been wearing this exact same sweatshirt that I'm wearing right now.
That would be weird.
No, actually, I think I was wearing a purple one. Never mind. It's very similar. But I didn't like how I was dressed in that video. I looked kind of weird.
That's it? That's your only critique? 7 years on?
Yeah.
You've been good for so long at this.
Oh yeah, no, but actually, I watched that video and I was I think I've always had it in the back of my head, like that made sense at the time. I didn't have as much income, and of course I would build my own DIY screen rather than buying one, and now I feel like, well, I should just buy one. I don't really have the time to build one again. But I watched that video and I was like, no, actually the screen I made looked pretty good. I should just do that again.
Yeah, I mean, you can DIY a really high quality screen, I think, so it makes sense to me.
Yeah,
it's gonna be way better than shining it on your wall.
So yeah, we have big dreams for this room. We have a lot of things ahead of us. We got to do some new flooring, some new drywall. Then eventually, I'll have a beautiful place to do the podcast from.
I love it. Well, should we thank our sponsor?
Definitely.
Handy Filmmakers is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your filmmaking business.
And we're just about to enter 2021. I'm already getting started on my New Year's resolution, which is fixing up this room. But if you are looking to expand your business, Squarespace has lots of templates and third-party extensions to do appointment scheduling, to do e-commerce. So if you want to start teaching filmmaking, you could schedule appointments for your classes and sessions right on your Squarespace website. There's lots of tools like that to get you up and running in 2021 to diversify your income.
So check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Griffin to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you, Squarespace.
Thank you, Squarespace.
I'm using my new camera.
Yeah, I was gonna say we both have new looks this week. What's how does your new camera look?
Well, hopefully mine doesn't look different. It should look pretty much the same.
The same Sony lens, full frame lens on there.
Well, it's not. It's a Rokinon lens, but yeah, 24 millimeter f2.8 lens. Same sensor, just different camera body. And when we were setting up for the podcast today, I was like, normally it takes me like 10 minutes to get going. I have to connect my camera to my computer so I could see the screen, right? I use the Sony remote software. And there's all these weird rules where it's like I had to quit Google Drive before I launch that or it won't work.
Weird.
It was a huge process. And then today I was like, oh, I flipped out the screen. I'm looking at the flip out screen right now, and I can just hit record. And this is perfect timing. I'm at 29 minutes and 48 seconds on this recording right now. At 30 minutes, the old one would cut off. And let's see. I've got 5 seconds.
The audience can live along with us and watch the time. And
oh my gosh. 30 minutes and 1 second. It just rolled over. So I did not have to stop and start while Griffin was talking or something.
We usually do it around the sponsor break.
While Griffin's saying his part, I'll hit stop and hit start recording again. So anyway, it's just dramatically simplified my setup, which I like.
And you have a cooking thermometer right now shoved into the sensor, right? So we can see if it's overheating.
So I have had some overheating with the new camera still. Now,
really?
Yeah, but it's when I've
What are
been
you
using it in
doing?
4K.
You've used it in a meeting and it's been that long or something?
Right. Yeah, I did like a 2-hour meeting, and like an hour and a half in, it turned off for overheating. It was in 4K mode. I'm not recording when I do that. I'm just outputting HDMI. But it was in 4K mode, so I'm thinking maybe if I am in 1080 mode, that might be less. Anyone know? Question mark. But the problem I have right now is when I plug in the HDMI output and it's set to 4K, the onboard display turns off. When it's set to 1080 and I plug in HDMI, when I'm set to 1080 and I plug in the HDMI, the display turns off. When I'm set to 4K, it doesn't. And I did some Googling, and this is the A7C, so it's new. It does sound like Sony has a whole document about like different settings and when the onboard display turns, like when you see what. I just can't find the appropriate settings on the A7C. So if anybody knows, this like HDMI info, it has to do with like whether or not it's displaying like, all the time and all that over HDMI or not. So I think there's a way to get it to work, but I just haven't figured it out yet because I haven't had a lot of time. So if you know how I can get the Sony A7C set to record in 1080p mode and still see my output over both HDMI and on the built-in display, I would appreciate that. But other than that,
I suppose your camera could be set to any record mode as long as it could output a 1080 signal.
Whatever's going to make the camera happiest and not overheat.
And leave the LCD on, yeah.
Yeah.
And your camera, you haven't determined, like, trying to think of another way around this, there's not like a USB-C out that it could become a webcam or something.
There is. I know Sony did support that finally. I just haven't messed with it yet, mostly because their software's so frustrating about this whole before you connect, disable Google Drive, because I guess Google Drive tries to grab the device and I don't know, they fight about it.
Oh yeah, so you suppose if you used it as a webcam in that way, you'd still have to use the Sony software.
That's my understanding.
At the same time. Yeah.
That's my understanding, but I could be wrong about that. So if I'm wrong, let me know. But other than that, I love the camera. It is, I was kind of thinking it doesn't look like it's really going to feel that much smaller, but it feels quite a bit smaller, the camera, which I like.
Yeah.
I went on a trip and brought it with me, and when you put one of these smaller lenses on it, it's great.
You've done some family photography with it?
Speaking of, if I can segue again, unless you have any other questions about the camera.
No.
I got a new piece of software called Luminar AI. It's photo editing software. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, yeah.
So I saw a bunch of like YouTube videos. I don't know, they must have gone on like a sponsoring mad spree because like 10 of the people I follow had videos about it, sponsored videos about it. But I still thought it looked pretty cool, so I bought it.
They actually contacted me quite a bit.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Well, now they're going to get a free one because they're not sponsored. No one sponsors me, but that's okay. I love it. It's really, I've only played with it a little bit, but for someone, I use Lightroom and I always want to like brighten up faces or do things, but I'm not going to spend time masking and doing all this work that a professional would do because it's not my job, right? I want to just edit a photo quickly and then save it and be done. And all these AI features, the face detection and the sky replacement. Anyway, I'm having a lot of fun with it. But the big thing is, I always want to brighten faces, and it was too much of a hassle before. Now there's like this smart face thing where you can just like slide a slider and everyone's face brightens up.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of magic. I've been very impressed. So it's still a little slow on my i5 Mac Mini. I'm hoping when I switch to a future Apple Silicon Mac, it'll be faster. It's sometimes it's hard for me to tell, like, is it thinking about an edit or is the edit done or like what's happened? But the results are great.
Well, and because it's doing so much AI, I'm assuming like the Creative Cloud version of Lightroom, the most recent version of Lightroom, it needs internet connection while it's doing all of this?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. No, I think all the AI is like
sending information
device
to the cloud. Yeah,
no, I don't think so. I think it's using AI on device. But maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Maybe that's why
Yeah.
it seems a little slow. Anyway, I'll send. Maybe I can. I did a cool. So they've got. If you've seen these videos, you've seen the sky replacement thing, and I did.
Yeah.
I had a little landscape that the sky was just overblown white clouds, and it was a lake and some trees, and it was kind of a meh picture. And I did 2 clicks. I did a template for landscape, and then I replaced the sky with another click, and I was like, oh, that's actually kind of a cool looking picture. Nothing to get super excited about, but I'll show it before and after.
Do you suppose it's
I just did.
like a catalog of 40 sky shots that it picks one?
It
to
is.
put
Yeah,
in?
you get to pick one, and there's a bunch of them. So yeah, you'll probably. I mean, if this gets popular, I'm sure you'll see the same skies in every picture moving forward. But
right. And
just
it's not.
the way it masks it out perfectly, and you can then control the blur and stuff, and it makes it really easy and really fast to get some cool results. I'm sure professionals will hate it because it's an easy button, but when I'm trying to do pictures of my kids or a trip I went on and I don't want to spend a million years editing, it's kind of exactly what I need.
It sounds like it's exactly what you would like, because you and I have always had slightly different philosophies about the amount of time we're willing to spend on things, and you would rather just click a single button and have it look really good.
Enough. Good enough to good. Yeah.
And I'd be the one who would obsess over I don't like this sky. Can I reverse it and maybe I'll like it?
It does have a flip sky button, so you'd be happy.
That's cool. I should try it out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just it's a matter of time. It's I can either edit it quickly or not at all. So
yeah.
Why does it have a warning? Anyway, I will share those files with you.
Cool. Thank you.
We said this is going to be a short episode. We've gone on and on, haven't we?
Yeah. Turns out we had a lot of fun talking to each other.
So much fun. What else you got?
I guess one more thing I should mention is I just did a podcast episode with my friend Adam Ron, who has been...
I watched it. It was very good. I enjoyed that.
He has a podcast with a really creative name. It's called Freelancers, Answers for Freelancers, essentially. And so I realized I'll run this past Adam and make sure he's okay with it. But I realized if he's cool with it, I should probably just simulcast it onto our podcast feed. So if you are listening to this on a podcast app, I will just release his episode right after it.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So you can listen to it right here. But it's also, like our podcast, it's also on YouTube. So I'll be sure to put in the show notes a video link. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just check the description and I'll have a link to Adam's podcast as well. It's like an hour and 15-minute conversation with me about just Adam and I talking about freelance business.
And your origins from Illinois State University together, which I enjoyed.
Yes, that's where Adam and I
TV
knew
10.
each other. Yeah.
See, now you know I actually did watch it.
Right, yeah.
All right, my friend. I hope you have a happy new year.
Yeah, happy new year to you.
And come on, 2021.
Let's all hope 2021 is going to bring good things for all of us.
Exactly.
I think it will.
We will talk to you all later.
Bye. That's really weird. I can hear you now that I switched my audio to speakers, but I'm hearing you in my AirPods, which doesn't make any sense. I guess I'll leave it like this. This doesn't make any sense.